Now it's time for Poly Nonsense.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Poly Nonsense, hosted by Captain Kirk.
That's me.
And I'm some guy named Jason. On the show today, we have Going Green at a Necessary Cost, Legal Repercussions, Kirk's Corner, Errors and Corrections, and Just the Headlines. But first, Biden's trip to the Middle East. Biden started his trip to the Middle East by going to Israel first. In Israel, he signed a pact with Israel saying that he does not want to give nuclear weapons to Iran and that the Islamic Revolutionary Guard is still on the terror list, pretty much trying to show Israel that the United States values them and really views them as allies.
This Middle East trip is coming on the heels of terrible polling numbers for Biden in almost every category. These procurements that he has agreed to with Israel, that Iran will still have its Revolutionary Guard listed on the terror list.
The IRGC was founded after the 1979 Iranian Revolution. It started as an ideological guard for the new regime, but has grown into a major force in Iranian politics, with close ties to Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. Iran maintains a regular Army, Air Force, and Navy, but there are parallel IRGC forces. The IRGC is estimated to have around 150,000 troops and reportedly takes up 2/3 of Iran's defense budget. Iran's missile program is run by the IRGC Air Force. It also commands the volunteer Basij militia force that has been used to suppress protests in Iran. The IRGC's external arm, the Quds Force, supports Iranian interests abroad. The estimated 20,000-strong force has been the target of multiple allegations of misconduct. The Quds Force has been accused of supporting the Assad regime in Syria, providing equipment and support to suppress the revolts that started in 2011. The U.S. also alleges that the Quds Force supported insurgents who attacked American forces in Iraq and Afghanistan.
It seems like just performative politics at this point, because they want to tear up the Abraham Accords, which was signed under the Trump administration. They want to tear it up and create a new pact so that Biden can have something to come back home to, but that doesn't seem to be happening right now. I don't know what his goals are.
What's interesting is that one of the bright spots, if not the brightest spot in the Trump administration, was the agreements between Israel and several Arab nations for peace and recognition. What's crazy is, so Biden doesn't even want to build off of that. He wants to destroy it and just build his own. That does not seem wise.
He's effectively copying homework off the smarter kid, tearing up that kid's work, and then claiming the copied work as his.
Well, after Israel, he then went to Palestine. And it's interesting because Palestine is in the middle of the trip, in between Israel and Saudi Arabia. Ironically, he is not going to Iran. But he went to Palestine, where there was no peace plan proposed. We are giving $300 million a year to Palestine, which is, I think, roughly what Nancy Pelosi makes in a year.
Yeah.
But we're really not giving anything to Palestine. We are going to give 1 million doses of COVID.
That's support for the economic development of the Palestinian people, to strengthen Palestinian security, to provide food for people to eat, to respond to the pandemic, including donating more than 1 million doses of COVID-19 to the West Bank and Gaza.
Thank you, Joe. We really appreciate your ability to help the world fight this pandemic.
Made in the USA. But it's interesting that we're not giving anything to Palestine. So I have to imagine with these two visits, this is going to be very interesting to see how his progressive base will react to these two things. Because the progressive base believe in the apartheid state. They believe they don't want the two-states agreement. So wouldn't this really upset the AOCs in the world?
just listening to lefty YouTubers talk about this issue, like the Young Turks, they are freaking out.
Lapid not interested in the diplomacy aspect of this. He wants a much more hawkish military approach. And he says, quote, "Words will not stop them, Mr. President. Diplomacy will not stop them," he said. "The only way to stop them is to put a credible military threat on the table." Well, good luck to you. The United States should not be involved in that. You want us to fight your war? By the way, you're escalating for no reason. So I'm supposed to work as hard as I do. All these Americans all across this country have to work as hard as they do to fund Israel's war against Iran when there is a diplomatic solution. Not interested. Not interested.
So they view Israel as an apartheid state, that it's racist against Palestinians, that the Palestinians were driven out in 48 in the Nakba, and that the Jews that live there are carpetbaggers. They don't belong there. The left really despises the idea of nationalism. Israel, a Zionist state, is a nationalist, religious, quasi-secular entity in the Middle East, which is vastly outnumbered by its Arab neighbors in terms of population. They have been fighting off their neighbors for 70 plus years now. And here's Biden coming in, acting like he's cock of the walk when he hasn't done anything. He hasn't done anything. What is he doing? Why is he there?
I think with Biden, it wouldn't necessarily be the cock of the walk. He'd be the cock of the shuffle.
I don't think he can even shuffle at this point.
He shuffles. He is shaking hands with imaginary people. He did pull that one out again.
Yes, he did.
That was a lot of fun. But it's just very interesting because with the Middle East, with the truth on the ground, he has to be moderate. He can't placate to the progressives. He can't undercut the Israeli presence in the Middle East because it's very, very important.
Correct.
So no matter what you think, Israel and the Sunni nations are the more moderate than the Shiites.
Imagine that.
So after the Palestinians, after really not giving them much of anything, he then is off to Saudi Arabia. He's in the middle of talks right now in Saudi Arabia. And one of the most annoying things for me personally that I saw, he fist bumps the Prince Mohammed bin Salman. Fist bumps. That is so annoying.
Why is that significant?
Okay, because his press corps said that he was not going to shake anyone's hand because of, gunk and COVID and
safety protocol.
Just general, hangnails, that kind of thing.
Is there a new policy around shaking hands or not?
What we're saying is we are taking precautions.
Is one of those precautions not shaking hands?
What I'm saying is we're going to try to minimize. We're trying to minimize contact as much as possible, where we can, and so that is what the focus is going to be on this trip. And
the president was in very lengthy handshaking selfie sessions the last 2 days at the White House. So is this a brand new policy as of today that you guys are trying to reduce contact?
With a brand new policy, what we're saying is we tend to take extra precautions.
So he ends up shaking the hand of Netanyahu in Palestine,
who is a former prime minister, and the prime minister that replaced him has stepped down.
Did he fist bump the Israeli prime minister?
Oh no, he shook.
So he shook. Okay,
so the current Israeli prime minister, he fist bumped.
He did,
but he shook the hands of Netanyahu, who is trying to retake his position as Israel prime minister.
So he's just fist bumping.
Fist bumping.
That's so annoying. I don't know. I also think too he doesn't want the optics of shaking hands and looking like he's on either side. So he technically is shaking the hands of the Palestinians, but fist bumping the people that the progressives don't like.
While giving doses of COVID-19 to Palestine.
Oh, that's just so annoying because I don't know. Fist bumping to me is just it's a lazy. It's so political. It's so ugh.
So MBS, the head of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, was going to be turned into a pariah by the Biden administration over his role in the death of this Washington Post freelance reporter, Jamal Khashoggi. And all these weapon deals were going to be taken off the table until MBS was held to account for that.
President Trump has not punished senior Saudi leaders. Would you?
Yes. And I said it at the time. Khashoggi was in fact murdered and dismembered, and I believe in the order of the Crown Prince. And I would make it very clear, we were not going to in fact sell more weapons to them. We were going to in fact make them pay the price and make them in fact the pariah that they are. There's very little social redeeming value in the present government in Saudi Arabia. And I would also, as pointed out, I would end the subsidies that we have, end the sale of material to the Saudis, who they're going in and murdering children and they're murdering innocent people. And so they have to be held accountable.
But now, Khashoggi is not talked about anymore, and a weapons deal is about to be procured on behalf of the Saudis to obtain offensive weapons.
Well, he has, through his talks so far, a very slight ceasefire with Yemen.
Correct, yep. And so that was actually, ironically, started under Obama, exacerbated under Trump, and now Biden is trying to claw it back.
Because that's a very necessary thing.
That's correct.
So, other than the ceasefire in Yemen, what else are we trying to get from Saudi Arabia? We need oil.
Oil is a big thing, especially as we enter a midterm where gas prices, inflation, and the economy are some of the top issues for voters.
So we don't want to produce it here because we want to go green, but if they produce it there, it's okay.
Yeah, that's an interesting little standard there.
So it'll be interesting to see how he walks this tightrope between the progressives and the moderates with Israel and the Sunni nations in the area. I mean, all I know is that we need oil sooner rather than later. All right, now we are going green at what or could be a necessary cost. What's interesting is with the rising of gas prices, inflation and the rising of gas prices, the supply chain disruption, the difficulties of that, it's not only happening here in the United States, but it's also happening in Europe. The past week or so, there were demonstrations in the Netherlands, in Poland, in Italy, where they are now taxing the nitrogen gas that they apply with their fertilizer to make it to where they can't use this nitrogen anymore, or this fertilizer anymore, which is pretty much going to submarine all of these local farms. It's going to make it to where these small-time farmers or these family farmers can no longer exist. It's going to boil down to where the state will own all the farmland. Now, here in the United States, nothing like that is really happening too much. But what is happening, it's a very subtle purchasing of farmland. Bill Gates owns more farmland than anyone in the country, and I dare say the world.
Bill Gates owns more land than all of the entire city of New York. Jeff Bezos' land is double the amount, clocking in at 420,000 acres. John Malone, the largest private landowner in America, owns 2.2 million acres all by himself, a landmass slightly smaller than the island of Puerto Rico. America is enormous, yet 100 of the richest and largest private landowners in America own 1.86% of all the land available in the United States, the majority of their land being forests, ranches, and farmland.
So my thought is, are they using this, the Green Initiative, are they using this time with post-pandemic supply chain disruptions, the war in Ukraine, are they using this time to slowly squeeze the populace and push it towards the Green Initiative?
Wasn't it Obama's chief of staff, Rahm Emanuel, who said, "Never let a crisis go to waste"?
I believe he was the mayor of Chicago at the time.
Became the Chicago mayor.
Oh, my bad.
You never want a serious crisis to go to waste. And what I mean by that, it's an opportunity to do things that you think you could not do before. I think America as a whole in 1973 and 1974, not just my view, but obviously the administration, missed the opportunity to deal with the energy crisis that was before us. For a long time, our entire energy policy came down to cheap oil. This is an opportunity, what used to be long-term problems, be they in the healthcare area, energy area, education area, fiscal area, tax area, regulatory reform area, things that we had postponed for too long that were long-term are now immediate and must be dealt with. And this crisis provides the opportunity for us, as I would say, the opportunity to do things that you could not do before.
If you can't trust Bill Gates, who can you trust?
I don't know Bill Gates.
He's a nice
I don't trust
guy.
him at all. I don't trust
he's
him
a
at
nice
all.
guy. Look, he smiles and he has glasses. Look, and he's on CNN all the time. It's cool.
Now, I know we were talking about this before the show, and I said, what if the electric car is the modern version of Let Them Eat Cake? And what did you say, Kirk?
My snarky answer was, oh, she didn't actually say that.
Marie Antoinette never said that.
She
I know
never
that.
said that.
I know she didn't say that.
So for any of the historians, many historians listening to this program right now, we know that Marie Antoinette did not say, let them eat cake.
But the broader theme is this.
The bigger picture.
Yes, is they're so disconnected to where let's just buy electric cars. Well, just get a Tesla. Get a new $40,000 car. It's going to help out everybody. Why not?
The Transportation Secretary, Pete Buttigieg, has recommended that a couple times.
So, what are we going to do with tractors? What are we going to do with semi-trucks who are now hauling these things hither and thither?
We're going to plug our ears, close our eyes, and say, la, 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 everything's okay.
But do you see my point here? Do you think they are using all of these crises, all of the situation right now the Western world is caught up in, to now push us green, to make the necessary sacrifices that they don't necessarily have to make, but the middle to lower class absolutely will have to pay?
You're making that sound like a bad thing.
I mean, only if you're middle to lower class.
Only if you're on the bottom rung.
Yeah, it's kind of a bad thing.
Mm-hmm.
I personally, I want to go green. I get it. I get how the environment is very important. I understand that. I want a good world for my daughter and for my family. I understand
so selfish.
No, I understand that,
so
but
selfish.
There's got to be a better plan than this. I mean, why does this have to be so extreme, and why does it have to be so extreme right now?
Excuse me, sir. We have the very illustrious Jennifer Granholm as our energy secretary, and we know what her plans are.
Let me cut to it, if I may. In Sturgis, Michigan, it is $2.89 a gallon. I guess that's better than in California. What is the Granholm plan to increase oil production in America?
Oh my God, that is hilarious. Would that I had the magic wand on this. As you know, of course, oil is a global market. It is controlled by a cartel. That cartel is called OPEC, and they made a decision yesterday that they were not going to increase beyond what they were already planning.
So I think if anything, we need to just lay our entire trust in everything that's going on right now.
See, it makes me very nervous when it's those who have say what we should do at the cost of those who have not.
It's like a weird reverse Marxism.
Yeah. welcome back to Poly Nonsense. Up next, legal repercussions. So, I have a question for you, Kirk.
Yes.
Out of these two suspects, who do you think is more likely to serve prison time? Donald J. Trump, who is former president of the United States. So Hunter Biden is the son of the president of the United States, and Donald Trump is the former president of the United States. The crimes that they have committed are thusly. With Hunter Biden, he does have interactions with Chinese companies. There is thought that he's using his family name to rake in some dough, not only in China and Asia, but also in Europe. There is connection between the 5 million gallons that didn't go directly to China itself. 5 million barrels that didn't go directly to China itself. We don't know how many barrels went to China, but there is a connection to the company that did take it is connected to Hunter Biden. Okay.
What a wild web of deceit.
He is also part of some sort of Eastern European human trafficking ring company thing.
What?
I don't understand that connection, but he's making money off of human trafficking of some sort. He also has been recorded doing crack in front of a prostitute. So those two things are theoretically illegal.
And weighing his crack.
Who
knows what purpose?
He's weighing his crack.
He's
well,
weighing
because you want to know.
You need to know how much crack you have.
You don't want to have too much crack.
Yeah, you don't want to just walk around with like too much crack.
Yeah,
like, I'm sorry, sir. Let me put some of this crack away.
Well, you don't want to be like, hey, what happened to you? I did too much crack. You know, like you have to get
happened to me last night.
Correct. Proportions of crack. So, international business dealings, using his family name to make money off of that.
Well, let's be clear. As Joe Biden says, he does not talk about his son's business dealings with Hunter.
Sure.
How many times have you ever spoken to your son about his overseas business dealings?
I've never spoken to my son about his overseas business dealings. Everybody looked at this, and everybody's looked at it and said there's nothing there. Ask the right questions.
He just leaves odd phone messages.
You're in the clear.
All right, and doing crack and prostitution. Okay.
Hey, pal, it's Dad. It's 8:15 on Wednesday night. If you get a chance, give me a call. Nothing urgent. Just want to talk to you. I thought the article, at least the thing online, was going to be printed tomorrow in the Times, was good. I think it's clear. And anyway, if you get a chance, give me a call. I love you.
So that is Hunter Biden. Now, in the other corner, we have Donald Trump. Now, Donald Trump, he might have evaded some taxes in New York, where he kind of juiced his numbers a little bit. I don't know if anything's caught up with him with that. I know they're really trying to get him on that.
It's been 5 years of them going after him for his
taxes. But still, it could happen. It could happen. You know, every dog gets his day at some point.
That Letitia James in New York, the Attorney General there, is a focused woman trying to take down Donald Trump, and yet so far nothing's happened.
But it's on the table.
Correct.
It's on the table. He also has sent out quite a few mean tweets. I don't know if that's an arrestable offense, but I think some people would say it was.
There have to be standards, and the standards have to be the same. You can't have one standard for Facebook and another for Twitter.
I got about a minute left.
But the bottom line here is that okay, but the bottom line here that we have to take very seriously is that, and I know this as a former prosecutor, when witnesses are threatened by the President of the United States, it is a very serious matter, and people will be influenced by those threats, and we have to say that it is not okay, and that he has revoked his privilege to use this platform, because it is a privilege that can be and should be taken away.
Oh, and then also here I have the fall of Western democracy.
Oh yes. He might have incited an insurrection.
He might have bring down the entire thought of democracy in the Western world.
Whoops.
So between those two, the international dealing, family laundering, crack smoking, weighing, prostitutes loving Hunter Biden, or
great guy.
Trump tax evasion. Could be lying about his finances, mean tweeting,
in the fall of Western democracy. Boy,
what are the odds? So, because you could say my money is honestly neither. I don't think either one's going to be going to jail. But if you had to pick one, who would you pick?
Oh, definitely be Donald Trump. Because Hunter's Teflon.
You really think so? Even if
we're talking about the likelihood between the two of going to jail,
yeah,
I would say Donald Trump is not necessarily a worse offender of our mores or normality, but that there's more of an effort to ensure that he gets locked up for whatever crime, whatever pretext, than there is to get Hunter Biden locked up.
Now, what if after November, after the midterm elections, and Republicans do possibly hold the House, possibly hold the Senate?
Well, they'll be taking over the House and taking over the Senate.
Right. Okay. So would then the opportunity for Hunter to be investigated, would that be increased?
Oh, for sure. They've actually said if they take the House, they'll be conducting many investigations of Hunter. So sure, he'll be investigated, but Donald Trump's being investigated and he hasn't gone to jail yet. So just being investigated doesn't mean you're a criminal lawbreaker that is going to be locked up.
Right.
Unfortunately.
You're not being prosecuted, per se. You're investigated, not being prosecuted.
Right.
So theoretically then, for Trump's best bet for him to go to jail, he has up until the January 6th hearings. At the end of the January 6th hearings, if he's not going to jail then, chances are he's not going to jail.
For the January 6th
thing.
Overturning of the election.
No, the New York tax thing, he could still go to jail for that.
That's correct, yeah. So, a conspiracy theory is that Joe Biden only ran for president so that he would not be able to be investigated by the person who he'd be running up against, Trump. That's what the whole impeachment 1.0 thing was about. Well, Joe Biden is your number one political foe, and you investigating him is a violation of FEC policies, so how dare you? Well, if Trump announces his candidacy, he'll be under that same umbrella of protection.
Oh my gosh.
Yep.
So then, oh my gosh. So then, odds would go then to Hunter.
Yeah, in that case.
Wow.
Yep, if he announces.
So if he announces to run,
which he will,
which you say he will.
Yep.
God help us all. So then the odds would be that Hunter would be then going to.
Then again, we were hoping that, well, certain people were hoping that Hillary Clinton would be locked up.
Oh, Hillary Clinton ain't going anywhere. Are you kidding me? Come
anywhere.
on. Hillary Clinton going to jail. That's like me. It's like, oh, I woke up one day and I was 6 foot tall. That's not going to happen. No, give me a break. Well, I mean, for me, I find it interesting because,
as we stand right here,
yes,
who do you choose? Who do you think will be between the two?
Right today, I would say Donald Trump.
Okay,
has more of a likelihood.
Right.
But after November, I would say Hunter, because like you said, he's going to announce his candidacy. And then if the Republicans do take over the House and do take over the Senate, and now there's, instead of January 6 hearings, now we have the Hunter Biden hearings.
I would love for these hearings to be televised by the most partisan network, produced by the most partisan producer. Do it, GOP. I dare you.
It'll be on Fox, and they'll say, we're just looking for the truth.
Just looking for the truth. While digging up every scurrious lie and slander against Hunter.
Yeah. I honestly, I do appreciate how Hunter does weigh out his crack. You know, you have to be responsible.
I mean, come on, if you're going to walk around with crack, you might as well know how much you have.
That's just the way to go. And now it's time for Kirk's Corner, where he will be answering the question, who is Ray Epps?
After months of investigation, Revolver News is zeroing in on Arizona-born former Marine Ray Epps, who can be found all over Washington, D.C. the night of January 5, inciting the crowd to invade the Capitol.
Into the Capitol! What? No! Peacefully! Fed! Peacefully! Fed!
So Ray Epps has been brought back into the news thanks to this New York Times article recently published about how poor Mr. Epps, who is as the Times article describes, a former Marine, a Trump supporter, who on January 6th can be seen in multiple videos encouraging people to advance on the Capitol and to breach the barricades.
We are going to the Capitol, where our problems are. It's that direction. Please spread the word.
In all the video you see of Ray Epps on January 5th, the night before, they always cut it off at very convenient timing. In this case, they cut it off right before the crowd starts to chant Fed.
We'll show how the delay to secure Congress likely cost a rioter her life, and how for some, storming the Capitol was part of the plan all along.
In fact, tomorrow, I don't even like to say it because I'll be arrested. Well, let's not say it. We need to go, I'll say it. All right. We need to go in to the Capitol. Let's go!
Now, why would they do that? Well, it's obvious. Because the crowd knew that he was up to no good. They didn't trust him.
So what you're saying is that he was prompting people to do things. He was kind of inciting violence a little bit.
And in this New York Times article, he even admits to texting his nephew after leading a crowd towards the Capitol that he was, quote, orchestrating the movement of the ostensibly pro-Trump crowd.
Orchestrating. Wow.
Which is not my words, but his.
Now, this is the same paper that cheered Ashley Babbitt's death. But this same paper is weeping for Ray Epps because people have been mean to him online? It's almost like they're trying to cover something up. Now, buried near the end of the New York Times piece, there's a hint. We find this line, quote, Mr. Epps also said he regretted sending a text to his nephew well after the violence had erupted, in which he discussed how he helped orchestrate the movements of people who were leaving Mr. Trump's speech near the White House by pointing them in the direction of the Capitol. Really? What was in that text? We'd never heard of that before, and it kind of makes you think the entire New York Times piece was written to drop that little bomblet at the end in the least damaging way. And we'd never seen that text message before. What exactly did Ray Epps say to his nephew? Have prosecutors reviewed that text? The New York Times doesn't tell us.
So we have, on January 6th, him actually up on the scaffolding for the inauguration 2 weeks later, telling people to advance onto the Capitol.
Okay, we're in! We're in! Come on! We gotta fill up the Capitol! Come on! Come now! Come now! We need help! We're gonna fill up the Capitol! Come on! Move forward! Climb up over the wall! Get into those bleachers!
According to him, he didn't enter the Capitol building itself. He was only on the Capitol grounds. Now, some individuals who were on the Capitol grounds but had not committed any violence, anything more than quote-unquote parading, were locked up, and some were mistreated by the Department of Justice. Of course, if you are a Democrat, you think that they got their just desserts. But not Ray Epps. Ray Epps is one man on January 6th, inciting people, orchestrating things, who is a sympathetic figure in this New York Times article.
Let me sing you a song of one of Mr. Epps. Such a blessed fellow was he. He marched to the front of the Capitol steps, and yet somehow he's still free. At first the FBI said, here's a sketchy guy. They put his picture on their list. But then we found him out and made them take it down. Now they pretend he doesn't exist.
He has received death threats by pro-Trump supporters over his alleged FBI either informant or agent role. He has received voicemails that are telling him to sleep with one eye open.
And he was a protester on January 6th. And they have commissions now to find out the truth about January 6th.
Correct.
And they're not talking to him, and he's never been indicted with anything.
He did speak to the January 6th committee.
Oh, he did?
Yeah, a couple of months ago. I'd say about 6 months ago. After a lot of the information about him, the videos and everything had come out, and people were asking, quote, who is Ray Epps? the January 6th Commission put out a statement. Oh, we spoke to Ray Epps, behind closed doors, of course, no videotape deposition. And he denied having any role in being an FBI agent or an informant or working with any law enforcement agency.
So if he were a school kid and there was a fight, he wouldn't be in the fight. He was just a kid going, ooh, next to him to escalate the fight.
Exactly. Now, there are videos of him telling the crowd before the breach not to assault the officers, that they're just doing their job, etc.
I would have came locked and loaded if I knew this was happening. Take a step back. Take a step back. We're holding ground. We're not trying to get people hurt. They don't want to get hurt. You don't want to get hurt. Back up. No, they don't. No, they don't. Out of preschool age, boy. Hey, it doesn't matter. We made a point. You don't want to take away what we did. Hey, where would you guys? Where would you guys? We fight for you in the street. Hey.
But my speculation, this is just pure speculation on my part, is that the breach team that he was ostensibly a part of, Ray Epps, had not formulated at the puncture site yet, which was the west end of the Capitol building. Everything at the east end was a little tussle, a little back and forth, but nothing too violent. It wasn't until after the breach of the west side, about an hour later, that a crowd had started to move to the east end, inciting that crowd to breach the Capitol building.
Meanwhile, inside the Capitol, Nancy Pelosi and Mike Pence have begun certifying the 2020 presidential election results. Certification will happen on both sides of the building, in the House and the Senate. And this is what the rioters want to stop. An hour into the assault, the mob is battling a police line here, along the west face of the Capitol. But that violence is now going to spread to multiple points of attack, as West Side rioters stream around the Capitol and incite the crowd on the east. Here's what that crowd looks like on the east. They're aware of the siege happening on the west side, and some are emboldened by it. But up until now, they've been kept behind the barricades. Then, this group from the west storms around the building and pushes right through the barriers. The police here barely put up a fight. And it's now that protesters all along the east barricades surge forward.
So, we have a couple videos of him telling people to not assault the officers, not do anything. But then we have video of the initial breach where the lady cop allegedly fell backwards and got her boots bloody, but we haven't seen the boots yet. And she was protected by bike racks acting as barricades. Ray Epps whispers into the ear of this backwards hat wearing MAGA supporter, maybe telling him not to do what happened 3 seconds later, or maybe encouraging him to push forward, break the barricade, and begin the breach.
So it's so interesting. So he's not come under any prosecution at all.
No.
He's not. He's been interviewed, but nothing's been documented.
No.
And now, for some reason, because he went on, I mean, Tucker Carlson did a thing on him. Different news outlets did a thing on him.
Right.
And he's been kind of quiet. Why now? Why is the New York Times doing this now?
I think it's to take advantage of the January 6th fervor. That's the only reason I could think that they would want to bring him back up. And the way that this article is painting him as a sympathetic figure, I think it's an attempt to use him like they're using Rusty Bauer, the Arizona House Speaker, or Brad Raffensperger, the Republican Georgia Secretary of State, to say, see, these guys were pro-Trump Republicans betrayed by their own side, and try and gin up that kind of schism between the conservatives and the Trump supporters.
So he instigates, it happens, and then he got his feelings hurt.
Correct. He is the only January 6th rally goer deserving of any sympathy. Not Ashley Babbitt, not Roseanne Boylan, who was trampled.
Not even the people who didn't even go in.
Not even Brandon Strzok, the head of the Walk Away movement. his crime was videotaping on the east end of the Capitol people taking riot shields. Somebody off mic says, "Grab that," and they grabbed the shield. The prosecutors said that they had proof that was Brandon. Brandon denies it, but because of the force borne down on him, he had to take a plea deal. Otherwise, he'd be charged with felonies. Instead, he's now just charged with a small misdemeanor. So, the entire idea that, he didn't enter the building itself, so he's a good guy. No, he created the breach, incited it, and then watched the world burn.
So I guess the question remains.
Who is Ray Epps?
Welcome back to Poly Nonsense. Now it's time for errors and corrections. This is the part of the show where we correct the errors that we made last episode. Now, last episode, Kirk,
yes,
you said the distance from Earth to Pluto was 3 billion miles.
That's what it is, right?
No, it's 3.1 billion miles.
So close, yet so far.
Listen, devil's in the details. And also, last week, I said that the Florida state capital was Miami. It is Tallahassee.
Oof. The big T.
The big T, as we call it. And now it's time for just the headlines we just didn't get to. Woman climbs into McDonald's drive-thru to cook her own order. I'll have what she's having.
Taking self-service to a whole new level. Attempted dog napping in New York City. Big issue for Frenchie owners coast to coast.
Yeah, watch out for those Frenchies, huh? Keep your Frenchies close. I have a scar on my forehead from eating my stubborn twin in the womb. That sounds...
It's a tasty dish.
Interesting. I'd like to see the scar.
Chris Hemsworth says his wife thought his Thor muscles were too much.
His wife said that?
His wife.
Wow. Like, could you tune down the muscles a little bit? That's
crank it up to 11, crank it down to 6.
Let's do like a 7. That'd be nice. So that was just the headlines we just didn't get to. Thank you so much for listening to Poly Nonsense. If you would like to contact us or listen to more of our episodes, go to polynonsense.com. Let us know what you think. If you like, let us know. Until then, we will